Hello and welcome to Political Paradigm. My guest is a singer, entertainment executive, and now a politician who wants to represent Etiosa Federal Constituency of Lagos in the House of Representatives. Olubankole Wellington is my guest. You know him as Banky W. Banky, welcome to Political Paradigm.
How are you, Terry?
I'm great. How are you? I should ask you that
very
question.
Well, very well.
Here we go again, Banky.
Yes, sir.
What's your motivation? Why do you want to do this again after the last time?
Well, Terry, you know what it is? For me, I've been very fortunate in my life for God to have used me as a builder in very many different areas of my life, of my businesses, of society. So when I'm in the music business, he's used me as a builder. There are artists, there are producers, there are DJs, there are entertainment executives today who've done so much greater things in entertainment because God used me as a stepping stone for them. The same testimony can be said of the movies that I've been involved in and what it's done, you know, the small roles that I've played and the projects that I've been a part of, either as an actor or as an executive producer. It literally has opened doors for the movie business, for people to launch off and do greater things. The same thing can be said of the food business. And when I came into the business, there were 1 or 2 locations. Today, we're working on our 7th and 8th locations. We're providing jobs for people in Lagos, for young people. There's a young man who works for the restaurant who came in earning 45,000 naira a month. And today he earns about over 5 times what he started earning when he started working with us. And so that's what I get joy out of being a builder, of being a stepping stone, of being somebody God uses to prop up others, to elevate others. And honestly, I say it in all humility. I'm not saying it to be proud or to brag. I'm saying it because it's where I get fulfillment. It's where I get contentment. It's where I get a sense of purpose. It's where I get meaning. You know, life is not so much about money, it's about meaning. And what I've realized is that the way that God has used me in smaller capacities in these various businesses, if we can do that through the powers of political office, we can do it for a whole generation. We can do it for a whole community. We can do it for a whole constituency. As opposed to 1 or 2 people, or 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 or 50. Now we're talking hundreds and thousands of young people who don't have jobs, who don't have opportunities, who have nobody fighting for them, who have nobody looking out for the policies that are being put in place to prop up their small business, or not enough people, I should say. And so for me, that's the motivation, right? I've seen it happen in different parts of business that God has blessed me and used me as a vessel in. And I believe that if given the powers of political office, then we can do it for so many more people. And that's why. That's the motivation.
Well, you know, if we look at your last outing and how it didn't go as expected from your point of view,
right,
anyone would want to know why you want to go and do this again. Why would you want to throw your hat in the ring again, Banky?
Well, you know, you said something very interesting, that it didn't go as expected. So I think that it's very important to define what success looked like for us in the last election. Because for us, it wasn't so much about winning the seat. It was about planting a seed. It wasn't so much about the next election. It was about the next generation. It was about giving Nigerians and young Nigerians specifically a rallying point, something to believe in, a proof of concept, to say, hey, if we stick our toes in the water, this kind of thing is even possible. You know, we can start here in Etiosa, which is the heart of Lagos. It's the seat of business in the country. We can make a stand here. And that's what we did in the last elections. We won in polling units and wards where it was previously unthinkable. We showed that if we got in the room and got on the same side, then we can start to kind of chart a new course for our nation by charting a new course for our politics. And that's really what 2019 was about for us. Terry, I declared for the elections 3 months to election day. It's unheard of, it's unthinkable. But I thought it was very important to make that statement, you know. And so when you frame it like that and you understand what success was going to look like, yes, it would have been nice to win, but success for us was exactly what you saw. It was about letting people know that we are here, we are interested in this, and we're willing to do the work. We're willing to stand for the right things. We're willing to speak against what we consider to be oppression. And
why do you think you lost that election? I don't want to believe that you went in there, even though you went in late, 3 months before the election, with
Right.
the hope that at least something may come up.
Right.
You hoped to win as well.
Of
right?
course, yeah.
But why do you think you lost?
So I think we lost because, first and foremost, it was a lack of structure. We ran on a party at the time, which was just myself and BK, the party chairman, who's a great guy, still a very great friend of mine till today. But there really was no party structure. There were, the party pretty much didn't exist, other than my own team of volunteers in Etiosa, and BK was also running in his state. There was nothing. There was no party supports. There was no funding. There were no boots on the ground. We literally had to build everything from the ground up. And that is incredibly difficult to do with all the polling units and wards and the entire constituency that you have to cover. Because structure wins elections, not tweets and followers, which I can testify because I have a lot of followers, right? But it's structure that wins elections. And we just, as a party, didn't have the structure that it would require to be able to man all the polling units throughout the constituency, to be able to protect your votes, to be able to stay there and watch the count. Because everywhere where we did manage to have some representation, we did fantastically well, but we just couldn't cover the whole thing. And that's, I think, where the PDP comes into the picture, because that's a party with structure. Not just around the country, but specifically in Etiosa, specifically in Lagos State, there are boots on the ground. There is an army of people who want better, who are willing to stand there and work with you and fight with you, to win and to chart a new course. And so I think that's, for us, that was the major thing. There were a few other reasons, but I think that was probably the major one.
We'll talk about the PDP and why you chose the PDP in better details. But I'd like to ask you this question.
Okay.
From when you lost that election, 2019, till you declared about a week ago, what have you done in between that period to prepare you for this journey?
Well, for me, the one thing I did, so first of all, immediately after the elections, the campaign takes so much from you. It drains you financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically. After the elections, you just need some time to catch your breath. So I think for the first year or thereabouts, you're just, trying to get your businesses back on track. You're trying to, catch your breath, get your feet underneath you. And then, as God would have it, COVID hits, 2020. COVID comes into town. And for me, it then, running for office was the last thing on my mind. Then what was on my mind was, how can we be a part of the solution that we need? Because immediately the lockdown happened, businesses shut down, people were laid off, young people didn't have jobs. People whose daily income was tied to their daily activity all of a sudden didn't have enough money to buy food for their families to eat. So you would be in Lekki going maybe to the supermarket, which was like the only thing that was allowed to be open, the food stores. And you would see the streets literally lined with people who were just looking for food, looking for something to eat. In fact, one day, I'm sitting in my house with my wife, and like 12, 15 boys show up outside the gates, saying, Banky W, Adeswa, come out. Please, we need food. We need something to eat. And for me, that was an alarm bell. And it was a different kind of alarm bell that was happening for a lot of people, because I'm in the residents associations and we're talking and people are saying, oh, it's not safe. Area boys are everywhere. This lady, her window got broken, so only go to the grocery store in the morning when it just opens and don't go again. It's not safe. And for me, it was like, man, when there's a problem, the solution is not to go and hide and figure out when you can dodge the problem. The solution is to say, how can we address it? How can we be part of the solution? I feel like we're called to be lights in darkness. That's the job. So when there's darkness, it's time for the light to shine. So I got on the phone, I got with a friend, Taiwo Titoju. We called 2-3 other friends, Miss Akinyoju, Noella and Maureen, and the 5 of us got together and said, you know what, we're going to start Lekki Food Bank. CAC was even shut down. You couldn't get anything registered, but it was just like, this was an immediate, urgent problem that we needed to play a part in solving. And so we launched full on into starting the Lekki Food Bank. We got friends and family residents in the area to contribute money. We started buying bulk food boxes and doing food distributions once, twice a week. At one point, we were doing it every single day. And as of today, Lekki Food Bank has provided food for over 100,000 people in the 2 years to the 2.5 years since then, because people started finding out from all over Lagos that they are sharing food in Lekki. And all of a sudden, we saw the crime rates go down. We saw the instances of people lining the streets and trying to assault people on their way to the grocery store. All of that started reducing because we were able to be part of the solution. And so that's what I've done in the time since. And I didn't do it because I knew that I was going to run again. In fact, people that are close to me, people that have had this conversation with me will tell you that I was like, am I going to run again? I don't know. If my service to the community was only dependent on whether or not I got a seat in government, then I didn't deserve the seat in the first place. Because we need servant leaders. We need people who understand that it's an honor to serve. And it's something that they would do regardless. So I was doing Lekki Food Bank. I was doing community service through the Waterbrook Church. I was doing community service through my Banky Wellington organization, scholarships and hardship assistance and grants and all of that. That's what I was doing in that time. Whether or not I was going to run, it didn't matter. And I think that that's what we need. I think we need people who are servant leaders by nature.
So let me come in here. Beyond your level of service, we understand how local politics is.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. How popular do you think you are among the people of Etiosa? And most importantly, what did you do in the past, say, 3 years plus to increase your popularity among your people?
Okay. So I'll tell you a little story. After businesses opened back up, and everything was going, getting back to our new normal, because it's not the same normal that we had before. One day I was on Twitter and I saw a tweet from somebody, and he said that he was in the mall, kind of hanging around or sitting on a bench or something, and he overheard one of the cleaners in the mall. That's the Palms Mall that's here in this Lekki Oniru area. And he said he overheard one of the cleaners talking to some other cleaners or friends of his. And the guy said, if not for our Banky W, he doesn't know how his family would have survived during the lockdown. That his family literally survived because of what we were doing through the Lekki Food Bank. And I think that that's what my community service has done. It has given me a level of connection to my people because I've stood with them out there. I've served them food myself. I've arranged chairs for them to sit. I've helped their families. And I'm grateful to God for that. I don't say it to brag at all, not even close. But there's a level of connection that I have with them now. I'll give you another example. Actually, on the day that, during the NYSC, when things started getting crazy with, area boys and, on the streets and just the tension in town and all of that, we were also trying to do Adesuwa's maternity shoot because we were pregnant during this time in 2020. And I remember the day that we were going to go, I was a little worried because, it felt like it might be a bit unsafe. So maybe we should cancel the whole thing and just forget about doing it. But your wife is 6 months pregnant. You kind of want to capture that memory. So I thought, okay, hold on. Let me drive out and see what it's like in town. And if it's safe, then we'll carry on. But if it's not, we'll cancel the whole thing. And I drove out and I saw some guys coming with like machetes and sticks. And immediately they saw a car because they were, blocking the streets and stuff. And immediately they saw me, they descended on the car. But immediately they saw that it was me. They said, Banky W, okay, clear road, baba, baba. I said, oh, my wife is coming. They said, baba, no worry. And I went and they would, still be on the streets doing what, but immediately they saw my wife's car. They said, oh yeah, clear road for our queen. Now that level of loyalty and love is not because I'm a musician. It's not because they've seen my movies or they like my song. It's because I've served them. It's because I've spent time with them. It's because I've been there in the grassroots with them, spending time, serving, helping, doing the little that I can. And that's when you ask what my popularity is with my constituency, I think in the last 3 years, that has greatly increased. Whereas before, they knew me because I was in entertainment and some of the things I've done around the country. I think over time, I've just directed a lot more of my efforts to this community specifically. And so it gives me a level of connection that I don't think I had before.
Well, what do you think that the people of Etiosa need the most, that you think you can influence when you get to the House of Representatives?
So I think, one of the mistakes I made in the last campaign was I, kind of sat in my office and I said, I'm an educated guy, I have competency, I have character, I have a good heart. So I'm going to write out my agenda. And that's what I'm going to run on. And then I realized now that that's a mistake politicians make. So we sit down and we say, hey, I know what the people need, and we make promises. And sometimes you might be promising a solution that is not actually what the people require. So what I will say is we're in those consultations now. And that's something that being in the PDP has given me. It's given me a level of connection I'm in the ward meetings with my people. And we started those conversations to say, okay, I'm coming back into the race now, but I don't want to be the politician that just comes out with a list of things. Oh, I'll do this, I'll do that. What do we need? What do you guys need? What does this community need? Where's the pain? Where's the problem, and how can we solve it? Now, I can tell you that I do have some ideas. For instance, for young people in Nigeria as a whole, I think the NYSC is something that needs great reforming. I think we need to rethink the way we do things that we've always done. That's part of the problem, is that we've just accepted things the way that they are, instead of taking a critical look at it and say, hey, can we do this a little differently? So take NYSC, for example. At least half of the young people who do NYSC might not need it. At least not in the iteration that it's in now. So you have people that go for NYSC and they just sign a paper somewhere and give somebody money so that they say that they have it. And then they go off and do whatever. So is that program really achieving what it was meant to? Or can we think about it differently? Can we consider amending the Constitution to say, okay, this thing is no longer compulsory, it's optional. But when you do that, first of all, the people who don't need it won't do it. So you already save resources. You can now put the remaining resources to increasing the amount of money that you're able to pay young people on a monthly basis. You can use the sunk cost, the buildings, the campsites, to say, hey, can we give them digital skills training? Can we give them vocational training? Can we give them something that gives them a skill set that is useful in the century that we are in, and not just saying we have always done it like this: come, stand, march, smile, take a selfie, and yeah, you have been there, you have it now, all of a sudden you have served your country. It's not true, it's not real. So I have ideas like this, which is taking things that have always existed in their current form and taking a critical look at that and saying, how can we reform this? I believe that we need reformers in government, not rent seekers. And that's what I will be going in there to do. Now, in terms of the specifics of the agenda, that is being worked out. Some of it will be for a national scale. Some of it will be specifically for my community. But I won't talk about that until I've heard from each and every ward, which is what we're in the middle of now. And then we'll present our agenda.
As a young person going into this level of politics without any backing, I don't know if you have any backing yet, we'll come to that, but going into this level of politics without any backing will definitely be a challenge. I'm sure you can attest to that. Considering that, for example, you're up against Ibrahim Banikur, whose father is renowned in politics. He's been a minister as well. And he's in the APC. What's your concern regarding this election and your chances?
So I think that you bring up a very good point. It helps to have a bit of backing just for the enormous strain that the campaign will put on you, the resources that you need, the network that you need. And so where I'm at now, where I sit now, is my challenge is really to the new Nigeria, the guys in tech, the guys in fintech, the guys in entertainment, the guys in media, the guys in agro-tech, the guys who are involved in innovative business solutions, who are making, all things being considered, the country being in the state that it is, but they're doing well. And my message to them is simple. The way we get out of this mess as a nation is through innovation and reform. Innovation doesn't happen in government offices. It happens in fintech, with the companies that are doing so well. It happens in agriculture. It happens in entertainment. That's why our artists are winning Grammys. It happens in media. It happens in banking. It happens in telecoms. Innovation happens in the private sector. But reform happens in government. So it's time for the guys who are at the table of innovation to put people at the table of reform, put people at the table of policy making, and say, okay, if we don't do this, then one day you'll be innovating and innovating, and then a policy will come that will kill your innovation right there in its tracks. So if you don't do politics, politics will do you. And that's the message to them, is saying, okay, yeah, I don't have, the backing, that Obaniko, for instance, has with his dad and, the powers that be in APC. But I do have the ear, or at least I believe that I have the ear of the young community, the business community, the young people, the protesters, the businessmen, the people who are in fintech and tech and agriculture and media and entertainment. And it's time for that community to sit up. Otherwise, you will sit back, sit out the process, and leave those of us that have been willing to stick our necks out to fry. And at the end of the day, the powers that be will continue to weaponize poverty. So they depend on the fact that we have a lot of apathy on this side, so that most of us sit out the process. And then the people who are there, who do get involved in the process, have, they're in need. And so they're able to now weaponize poverty to control our political system. And then all your innovation and everything that you're working for, sooner or later, one day, the policy will come that will freeze your work in its tracks. So is it a challenge? Absolutely. But I believe that we are finally at the right time, that enough of the people on that side of the table will come to the table and say, okay, you know what? This person or these people have like minds. We all think the same. We all want the same. And it's time for us to support those people in their quest to enter office.
But then there's the issue of funding. Yeah. How are you going to get funding for your campaigns?
Well, last time, what we discovered was we crowdfunded, and most of our donors were people that could give less than 5,000 naira. And is that enough? Absolutely not. But the hope is that we will still be able to crowdfund at that level, and the community and the constituency and Nigerians all over the world, the people in the diaspora, for instance, will care enough to want to get involved.
So, Banky, it would seem that you really want to ride on the back of the PDP, because you had mentioned that the PDP had its structures. I want to know why you chose the PDP over the APC. They are the two big boys, aren't they? And right. Of course, the APC is the ruling party.
So, you said something about riding on the back of the PDP. I don't think that I would put it that way. I think I would say I want to team up. I want to partner. I think that there's a disconnect between, so speaking about the Lagos PDP, for example, there's some in the Lagos PDP who've been in that struggle for years, just trying to say, hey, Lagos is doing okay, but it can do better. We can do better, we can do more. And they've been in that struggle for years. And then you have the young people who I've been with for years, and we've been protesting and speaking up and marching, and you can reel off a long list of protests that we've been a part of. And I believe that there needs to be a bridge between those two groups of people to say, hey, instead of working in silos and not, you can't keep doing things the same way and expect a different result. So instead of working in silos, why don't we team up? Why don't we partner? Why don't we collaborate? We have shared interests in the state and the nation doing better. And I think that's what joining the PDP has done for me. It's given me a party that has welcomed us with open arms. It's given us a seat at the table. It's given young people a seat at the table to say, hey, instead of protesting, move from protest to power. Come in and let's figure it out together.
Well, then young people have repeatedly said, not the PDP, nor the APC. I'm sure you are also familiar with the kind of reactions that you received from declaring to run on the platform of the PDP. And some have questioned why you've chosen to dine with the devil. How do you respond to that?
What I've learned and what I believe is that we must engage with Nigeria where it is, not where we hope that it should be. I think that, so in every organization, there are great people and bad people everywhere. There's no one organization of human beings where you will agree with everything that everyone has ever done. So if you have that idealistic mindset that unless it's like this, I'm not doing, then at the end of the day, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. I think we have to engage with Nigeria where it is, not where we hope that it should be. You know who's in the Lagos PDP? It's the market woman. that can't, that doesn't have enough customers to buy her food. It's the person that can't afford to buy the food from the market woman. It's the young person who's graduated university and can't find a job and is looking to become a delivery rider. And I'm in the ward meetings. And these are the people that are there. And these are the people that we're fighting for. When we were doing the NYSC protest, why was I there? Right? Why was, really, I mean, I'm not the most famous or the most successful entertainer, but I've done all right. So if the police pull me over, they're probably not going to beat me up. So far, so good, by God's grace. So why was I there? Why was Fowles there? Why were any of these people there? It's because we were fighting for the people who are less fortunate. We were fighting for the people in the grassroots. We're fighting for the young people. We're fighting for people who've been abused by the country that they love. And those people are in the ward meetings. They're in the grassroots meetings. They're in the ward meetings. They're in every ward. They're in every constituency looking for a party that will stand up for them. And so that's my message. Like, if that's who we are really fighting for, then they are here. So why don't we fight together? Why don't we team up and partner and collaborate instead of saying, oh, we're going to cast a blanket judgment? And to be honest with you, I was once of that opinion. I felt like, you know what, it's not. But maybe because I've done some time, I've been in the trenches, I've been in the communities, I've sat in these meetings, I've seen the people in the grassroots, I've seen our indigents, I've seen our artisans, I've sat with them, I've sat with the graduates, I've sat with young people who can't find a job, I've sat with all of these people in these communities, and that's where they are. And they've been wise enough to say, hey, as imperfect as this place is, we are here, and we're going to keep struggling here. Now all we need is some people who can come in here and team up with us and chart a new course, and that's why I chose.
But regardless, I recall that in 2019, when you were running, you debunked any chances of you joining the PDP or the APC. In fact,
Right.
for the PDP, you specifically said they had no ideologies.
Right. So here's the thing. I think only a foolish man would never change his mind, or would resolve to never change his mind. I think an intelligent man is one who sits, looks, and learns, and spends a lifetime actively and continuously learning to say, what lessons can I learn? How can I be better? How can I be wiser? How can I be more effective? How can I be more impactful? And if I was one of the people that insisted that I was always correct, and I would never get it wrong, and I would never adjust, my mindset or my thought, then that's not somebody that you want. You want somebody who is open-minded enough to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I didn't quite get this right. And maybe I've learned enough lessons to say, you know what, I'm going to change my mind on this because I think this is actually a better way to go. And does that make me evil? No, it makes me human. And I think it's okay for us to accept that we're human beings and we will have decisions, and in some instances we're going to need to change our minds and open our minds up because it's for a greater
So
cause.
I like to think that you agree with those who say that you cannot achieve much from outside the circle, so it's best to be in that circle.
Yes.
To be able to achieve it. And to get into that circle, you need the big boys,
Yeah.
so to
You
speak.
need to get into the platforms that do exist. That's my opinion, yes.
Oh, very well then. I'm trying to understand the level of confidence you have in winning, in going into this election. Are you confident that you will win this time, or are you still looking at the seeds growing?
No. No. Like I said, in 2019 was about planting the seed.
Has that seed grown now?
2023 is about winning the seeds.
Okay.
Ironically, if you put together what we did in 2019 and what the PDP did in 2019, if we were on the same platform, we would have won in 2019. And so now that we are officially on the same platform, and there are a lot more new voters coming into the system who are frustrated with the status quo, and really that's the message, right? So to everybody who's watching this interview, not voting is essentially a vote for things to remain the same. So if you are happy with the way things are, then fine, sit out the process. But if you are not, then at least get your voter's card and use your voice for whoever you actually believe is the right choice. I think that elections are won by the people that show up.
So since your declaration,
Yes.
there have been mixed reactions.
Yeah.
Some have been quite negative. A lot of people have said, stick to your music, stick to entertainment.
Right.
You want to be a pastor, whatever it is you want to do, but just
Right.
leave politics.
Right.
How would you assess the level of attention you've received since declaring?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. So in the last elections, when we were at the collation center, and we were struggling to even be allowed to get inside the collation center to see what was happening, there was a guy who worked for one of the other parties. And, while we're struggling and saying, no, it's not right, it's not fair, you have to allow us in, he turns to me and he says, Banky W, stick to entertainment and advertising, all these things that you do, stick to that. Leave politics for politicians. And those words, they're ingrained in my mind because I think that that's part of our problem. We've left politics for politicians. We've left politics for people who feel entitled to it. We've left politics for people who've never been in the struggle of trying to build a business. They've never been in the struggle of trying to hire people and pay salaries and build a career and fight against the system and struggle to make something of yourself in a country that it sometimes feels like you're in an abusive relationship with. We've left politics for the people that don't value service. They see it as titles and riches and honor, and red carpets. They don't see it as service. And there's a reason why government work is called public service. You're supposed to be a servant. And part of our challenge is that we've left politics for politicians. And so for people who say things like, oh, only you, musician, filmmaker, pastor, today community service, tomorrow philanthropy, today, my response would be, but isn't that what you want? Don't you want somebody who's had to build businesses in various sectors and so far, by the grace of God, has been relatively successful at it? Don't you want somebody, if you're a small business owner, don't you want somebody who understands what it means to be a small business owner? Don't you want somebody who understands what it means to have to pay salaries every month? Nigeria forces us to be governments unto ourselves. You provide your own light. You provide your own water. You probably provide your own estate security. You and your neighbors put money together to fix the road. That's what Nigeria does to us. So don't you want somebody who's been in that struggle with you and understands what you are going through and so will stand for that and fight for that, as opposed to somebody who has lived an entitled political life? Some people are called to do one thing. Some people are called to do many. There's a scripture about the talents. Somebody has 5, somebody has 3, somebody has 1. The guy with 5 goes out and gets 5 more. The guy with 3 goes out and gets 3 more. The one with 1 just holds on to the one that he has. And what I took from that is that settling for what you've already been given is failure. Mediocrity is failure. If all I ever did was, oh, I know how to sing, I'll sing and collect money for singing and go home, then that's failure. Because that's what I was given that. I was given the ability to make music. I'm grateful for that. It's not something that I can boast of. But now what have I used that to do? Well, I've used it to, at what point, start a record label. And when my music dreams came true, I became a stepping stone for other people's. When I was in the film business, same thing. When I'm in food, same thing. When I'm in advertising, same thing. When I'm in church, I'm serving my community. That's where I get fulfillment. That's where I get meaning. Life is not so much about pay, it's about purpose. And I'm chasing purpose. And if that means that some people won't understand or won't agree, that's okay. They didn't understand Jesus Christ. Some people don't understand Obama or Mandela or Mohammed or Buddha or any person who's ever done anything in life. And that's okay. You never get everybody. Nobody ever gets everybody.
Absolutely.
What you pray for is that you have enough people that come on board and believe in what you're trying to do. You don't need everybody, you just need enough.
Let's talk about this Lekki Tollgate issue and a bit about the NSARS protest,
Okay.
because to a great extent, the NSARS protest has exposed certain lacuna in the country and has prompted quite a number of youths to get involved in the actual political processes that we have. You condemned the reopening of the Lekki Tollgate.
Right.
You said something about the timing. Is it just about the timing or what it now stands for?
I think it's about all of the above. I think that what it stands for, the lives that have been irreparably damaged, the young people who have either been injured or killed or trampled upon, just the PTSD that I think young people in this constituency have about what happened there. I think that it's unfair of a government to insist on moving ahead with that at this time. I also think that there's a lack of empathy, because just looking at the state of Nigeria where it is right now, the quality of living, the cost of the quality of living, from scarcity of fuel to the price of diesel, to the tariffs for electricity, to the cost of food in the market, to the fact that everything is being inflated except for the income that you have. And for the government to then insist that this is the right time to say we're just going to move ahead, I think that it's unfair. I think it shows a lack of empathy. I also think that it shows, to a certain degree, a lack of fear, because we are in an election year. And usually, in an election year, a government is trying to pander to the feelings and cares of its people. The government is, this is... But there's a brazenness about this that I find very interesting.
Does it come to you as though nothing has changed since the NYSC protest? Because the protest was basically a clamor for better governance and improvement in virtually every sector.
Right.
Have you observed any improvements?
So, with government, there's always a mixed bag of things, right? So, primarily, the protest was first about police brutality and brutality by our security agencies. Police first, but then, military, everything else. And then it was, taking a step further, the clamor for good governance in general. Now, my honest opinion is that we cannot protest about every problem that we have. There are too many. It's not sustainable. How long can you... the NSAS was probably the longest protest I've ever witnessed, and it still came to a crashing end. So I think anybody that thinks that protesting alone will solve the problems is probably delusional. I think we have to understand that, yes, protests are important. Peaceful protests are important. And we must continue to protest. We must continue to speak up. But we must also move from protest to power. The best protest you can do is to unseat people in an election. They will learn a lesson that they will never forget. If you get yourself together and with that same energy, take the energy to your computer, go to the INEC site, register to vote, go there, pick up your card, and come on election day ready to make your voice heard. That is the absolute best protest that young Nigerians can do. Elections are next year, and people are saying, oh, we can't wait till then. If you think that next year is far, then you don't understand the game at all. Like, this is the time, and right when this is April, we only have until June to finish registering to vote. Everybody who doesn't have a card needs to be going online right now, watching this interview. Go get your voter's card, because that's the best and most effective and most impactful protest that we will ever have. If we speak with a resounding voice and let people know that you don't just get to have your way when you're in government. Power belongs to the people. It's time for the people to take the power back. That's one of my favorite things about PDP, because when you say PDP, they say power to the people, because that's what it's supposed to be. The power is supposed to belong to people. But for too long, the people have given up that power, and it's time for us to take that back. Elections are a game of numbers, right? The presidency of Nigeria has never been won with more than 15-point-something million votes. There are 20-something million students in Nigeria who could have decided where they want the presidency to go. Let's bring it down. Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, His Excellency Governor Sanwo-Olu, won in 2019 with 730 or so thousand votes. Lagos has over 20 million people. Some would say 30 million people. Let's bring it down. I ran for rep in the last elections. Do you know how many votes Obanikoro won the election with? 23,000. 23,000 votes in Etiosa, the seat of business, the seat of telecoms, the seat of entertainment, the seat of media, the seat of tech, the seat of... It's arguably the most enlightened constituency in the nation. It's where most of my followers, or a good number of my followers are. I have 5 million followers, or almost 5 million followers on Instagram. But we didn't have 23,000 people in Etiosa that can say, hey, you know what, we want something different. So play the numbers, young people. Play the numbers. You have those numbers. The numbers are in our strength. I was speaking at the church over the weekend. It was a conference, and there's a lot of great speakers, and the room was filled with young people. It was a leadership conference, and we're saying all these things, and we're doing a Q&A, and somebody stands up and he's like, but what's wrong with Nigeria? Why is it always so bad? Why are leaders this? Why are leaders that? And he was speaking so passionately, and you could tell that it was from a place of passion. And then we asked him, okay, but are you registered to vote? And he said no. And it's like, okay, bro, you just sit down. Because, and you know, we do a survey in the room, and maybe less than a third were registered to vote. But everybody's angry and everybody's frustrated. We've allowed the apathy to plant that root in our minds and say, it's bad, it's never going to change. But it never changes as long as we don't get involved in it. So let's even try and get involved and then see. Our turnout in every election is terrible. So why don't we try that for a change? Because clearly, doing nothing is solving nothing.
Yes.
Nothing's happening. So are we content to sit here doing nothing and watch the whole system drain and rot to its core? Are we going to challenge ourselves and say, you know what, this time in 2023, let's even try?
My concern now is there's a level of awareness among young people.
Yeah.
We agree that young people are now interested in politics, but the question is, are young people going about it the right way? Because we see conversations, people hold spaces now, and they want to talk about politics and how to prepare for it. From your assessments, are young people doing what they should be doing, or based on their experiences and what they expected to have learned?
Right. So I do think that those conversations are extremely important. These conversations you and I are having now, these conversations are important. That's how you get things started. That's how you educate. That's how you enlighten. That's how you make people aware of their power. That's how you inspire them to want to get involved. But, if it stops at the level of conversations, then that's just talk. And talk is cheap. And our people like to say talk and do. That's why we called our campaign. At least this phase of the campaign, we've called it talk and do, because we're going to talk about it. We'll have the conversations, and this is amazing. I don't think there's ever been a time that our conversations have been so politically charged, and there's at least not within my own experience on earth, have young Nigerians been so concerned and involved and just talking about the situation and voicing their opinions, and I think that's fantastic. So yes, we should tweet. Yes, we should do Twitter Spaces. Yes, we should post on Instagram and on WhatsApp and on Facebook. Yes, we should do all of those things. But if we make the same mistake, and that's my fear, are we going to stop at talking? Or are we going to move from talking to doing?
Now, repeatedly we hear that 2023 general elections will be different.
Yeah.
I've spoken to quite a number of people who have said that the elections will be different. But the concern is, what difference? Compared to other elections, what do you see?
Well, because I'm a man of faith, I'd like to focus on the positive. And for me, that is the Electoral Act. I think the passing of the Electoral Act has been tremendous. And people may not realize it now, but it has moved us one big step closer to the kind of democracy that we want to be. For example, there's the provision for electronic transmission of votes, which I think will go a long way in maybe not eliminating altogether, but at least making it so much more difficult for elections to be rigged in the way that...
that provision is dependent on INEC, right?
It's dependent on INEC. So again, it's a democracy, right? A democracy is built. It takes time. It took time for America to get rid of slavery. And again, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So, anybody who is looking for Nigeria to change overnight in one swift motion just doesn't understand the way that it goes. Big wheels turn slow, but they do turn. So let's just keep turning the wheel. And I think that the Electoral Act has been a great statement of intent for us to move towards the kind of democracy that we want to see. So I'm interested to see what happens in 2023. I'll tell you what, the electronic transmission of votes was very critical in the Edo State elections. It really helped. And so I think we will see more instances of that in 2023, and there'll be a bunch of other things. Nobody can call it. I guess we'll see what happens.
We will be having a new president in 2023.
Will we? Oh, we definitely will. We will. That's for sure.
In 2023.
And so, who that president will be?
You have a favorite?
Do I have a favorite?
From those who've declared no.
Well, I can only concern myself with the PDP side of things because that's my party. And I think that we have some interesting names being thrown into the conversation. But I think I would also be remiss if I focus so much on that, as opposed to, I have my own primaries coming up and I need to figure out a way to win. I'd be remiss if I assume that I'm just going to win my primaries. The primaries are its own animal altogether. It's a different fight, and that is completely where my focus is right now. And after the primaries, when the dust settles and we see who has what ticket, then we'll know what shape we're in.
But what do you expect from Nigeria's next president, considering the state of the nation currently?
I said this a bit earlier in the interview that I believe that the way that we will fix our country, the way that we will rise up out of the state that we're in, is through innovation and reform. And my prayer is that we get a president, not just a president, but really from the presidency all the way down to the governors, to the senators, to the reps, to the state houses of assembly, to the local government chairman. I pray that in the system we get enough reformers, because you can be a reformer or a rent seeker. And I think unfortunately for us, for a lot of times we've been stuck with rent seekers, people who are just there to make the most of it and keep it moving. But now more than ever, we're in desperate need of reformers, people who are coming into government understanding that we can't do things the same way. We have to find innovative solutions to very wicked, complex problems. So I pray that we have a reformer. I pray that we have a servant leader. I pray that we have somebody who has the heart, or who has a heart for the best interests of the nation and its young people, and not somebody who is just content to continue doing things the same way, milking the system the same way. Those are some of the things that I pray for, and those are some of the things that I'm hoping to be, if given the mandate myself for my constituency, is to lead by example, is to be a servant leader, is to be a reformer, is to be somebody that stands up for the interests of the community and for the country.
On a lighter
and
note,
if we get enough people in there, then we'll be in good shape.
On a lighter note, Banky,
yes, sir.
To support your political ambition and possibly boost your popularity, you're a popular person, of course, you have Wizkid.
Oh.
I mean, why don't you get Wizkid to endorse you? I mean, he has quite a large following.
Well, I love Wiz. He's my brother. He'll always be my brother. But I think that deciding to publicly support somebody is very much an individual choice. It's not something that you can expect from everybody. There's some people who will want to sit out of the political conversation entirely because they're just not there. Or for whatever reason. I think it's a very personal choice. And so, much like in 2019, I'm content to allow people make those choices, whether they are people who are in the public spotlight or people in private. I think at the end of the day, you can only hope that enough people see your intentions to stand up for you and to support you and to work with you to...
Yeah, but that's not what politicians do, Anyone listening now will say you're beginning to act like you're not a politician. I mean...
By what?
Politicians want that. They go to the people who can give them that. I mean, if you were not running for office, I'd like to think that one or two politicians would come to you to say, man, Banky, use your popularity to help me get
that's the
some
thing,
attention.
Right? I'm not going to go and, force anybody, whether they are public or private, to support what I'm doing. In the last elections, quite a few artists did. Maybe they didn't show up on the campaign show, but they posted. Even Wiz posted when we first announced the campaign. He put it on his Instagram. Davido posted. Timaya came from my rally. Tiwa Savage came from my rally. So there were quite a few entertainment personalities. Fino came from my rally. YJ or Maomi. Just a few people who I've had personal relationships with and know me well enough to do that. And I think they chose in whatever capacity they were able to support. And I'm very grateful for that. And I'm prayerful that this time enough of them will come to the table again. But whether they do or they don't, it's really not about them, right? So I think as a Nigerian, you shouldn't wait for an artist or an actor or an athlete to tell you who to vote for. This is about your life. This is about your business. This is about your kids. This is about your... Is an artist going to come and tell you which school your child should go to, or what you should feed them, or where you should set up your... I think there's some things that we have to take a personal responsibility for as a nation. And I think our politics is one of them. So people need to take some ownership of what they think about our politics. Do you agree with the person that is there, or do you agree with the person that's trying to come in? And you make that decision for yourself. Don't wait for an artist to tell you.
You've mentioned quite a number of artists, but anyone listening or watching this will say, Wizkid is not just any artist. He was signed to you.
It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah. You practically helped skyrocket his career, so he would owe you this, wouldn't he?
I don't talk like that. I don't. There's just not. If you know me well enough, you know that that's not a mindset that I have.
Now, would it mean the world to you if he endorsed you?
I would certainly appreciate it, but not just him. Anybody, really, and more importantly, the people in Etiosa. That's whose endorsement I'm looking for. The people in the community, the people who have voters' cards, the people who want a better Etiosa, the people who understand that if we get Etiosa right, then we can get Lagos right. And if we get Lagos right, then we can get Nigeria right. And if we get Nigeria right, then we can turn Africa around. And that's what's at stake for me. And I hope that that's what's at stake for people. So they're not sitting around waiting for an artist or a musician or an actor or athlete or whoever, Terry from Channels, to tell them. I think people, hopefully, the frustration of the times has pushed people enough people to say, hey, what do I want to do? And just do that. And if enough people do that, the chips will fall where they may, but we'll be okay.
Just because you mentioned this, the people in the rural areas, we question whether they are as exposed as those of us in the urban areas to understand the need to have a choice in things like this. I know that you've interacted with the people of Etiosa, and you would be able to differentiate different classes of people. In your interaction, or from your interactions with them, do you get a sense that there's some level of awareness at that level now?
That's actually a fantastic question. And I think what we're seeing in the grassroots communities is that sometimes I'm in a ward meeting and the people themselves stand up and they start challenging themselves. So we just did a ward meeting the other day, and a lady stood up and said, we know that every election, politicians are going to come and give us money. How long does that money last you? How much can a politician really afford to give? Maybe rice, maybe Indomie, maybe 5,000, maybe 10,000, maybe 20,000, maybe even give you 50,000 naira. Does that 50,000 naira last you 4 years? Because if it does, then no problem. But it doesn't, does it? Typically what they give you, maybe it lasts a few days, a week, a month, 2 months. And you mortgage the rest of your 4 years. You sell it for whatever they give you the night before elections. And so my message to them was simple. I say, if somebody comes to give you money, take it. People are suffering. They are hungry. Take the money. I wouldn't be the one to tell you don't collect. Collect the money. It's your money anyway. They stole it from the state. So take it. Take it. But when you get to the ballot box, do the right thing. Don't sell 4 years away for what may only last you a week or two. And that's what they're telling themselves. I saw a video in Ghana where politicians came with rice during election time. The people threw the rice back at them. Because even the grassroots, even in the rural areas, even they understand what's going on. This is 2022, 2023. Times have changed, man. Your phone, there's the reason it's called a smart device. People are getting smart. People are really starting to see what's happening. I mean, we talked about Lekki Food Bank in this interview. During the NYSC protest, didn't we see warehouses across the nation with food that hungry people could have eaten and politicians had kept there because they were waiting to use it for elections? Come on. So I think even the people are, they're more enlightened now.
Okay.
They understand what's at stake. Not everybody, because you never get everybody, but enough. Enough people should understand what's at stake to do the right thing. And if we have that, then we'll be fine.
So if you win, is this goodbye to music? Will you be a singing House of Reps?
Well, for me, it's really more, I'm at the stage in my life where I'm chasing purpose. It's bigger than any one calling in any particular season. It's about what is the purpose that God created me for? What is the impact that he would like for me to have? How would he have me serve the community, the country, his children? What role does he have for me to play? And that's why I'm here. If we win, in fact, when we win, by God's grace, I think we'll cross certain bridges when we get there. It goes without saying that there are some interests that will have to take a back seat and will have to be sacrificed for a greater purpose. But does that mean I'll quit, music or filmmaking forever? I heard once that artists don't retire, they just stop when they have nothing left to say. And who knows? Maybe I might not put out an album for a few years, but maybe when I'm done with public service, I might put out an album or a book or something. I think I'm a creative person and I always will be. So there'll always be an outlet for that at some point. But my concern would be to serve the nation. And that's what I'd like to do.
Banky, thank you very much for coming to speak with me on Political Paradigm.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Appreciate you.
Well, that's Political Paradigm. Thank you so much for your time. Remember to catch this and other episodes on channelstv.com or on YouTube. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.